to be really good at jiu-jitsu, you need both. You have to have a really intellectual approach to shortcut the learning curve as much as you can, at the same time as just being tough, like hardcore, and kind of, you got to have a dog in you at the same time, you know?
Smarts and savagery both.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Fuel Hunt Show.
What's going on, Eagles? I am Drew, and welcome to the Fuel Hunt Show. I am joined today by my co-founder and cousin, Joey. Joey, say what's up.
What's going on? And
my friend, Fuel Hunt athlete, IBJJF competitor, medalist in
bronze. I got bronze in NoGi Worlds 2 times, and then black belt Gi Worlds as well, both in adult division black belt in the Gi. So, and
then co-founder of Movement Art Jiu-Jitsu here in PA.
Yeah.
Before we start, I just want to get into, we'll start with this, but your life growing up, what you did, athletics, how you got into jiu-jitsu, and start there.
Yeah. I mean, first, like, thank you so much for having me here. You guys are awesome, and big fan of what you guys are doing, what you guys represent, and it's a huge honor to be here today. It's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, I mean, I started training like years ago. I think it was like 21, about to turn like 22. I was at a weird point in my life where I was playing soccer. Actually, I was trying to play professional, and then that was kind of, are we doing this? Are we not doing this? And then I had a job as well at a youth academy where I was like, you know, there's a projection there that, you know, you got a stable career and something that you enjoy and, you know, you're passionate about. And I was training jiu-jitsu a little bit on the side, kind of just starting. And I was just like, I was a white belt with like 1 stripe. And I was like, all right, bet we're going to just cancel everything. My family was moving away, moved out. And I was like, I'm going to be a world champion. And
so the bug got you right there.
Yeah. Right away.
Look, so you said you were 2021. How long ago was that? If you don't mind me asking.
Dude, so I'm 32 right now.
Okay.
So
like a decade.
About 10 years right now. So I've been about 10 years of just, holy cow, what is going on?
Right.
And it's like fake it till you make it, and just learning how to learn, and just like walking through the mud the whole way.
Yeah.
And so
I feel like jiu-jitsu gets, like, bites people like that, and it's over. Like you said, like, cancel everything. Like, it's all about this right now. Like, everything, all other plans are off. You know what I mean?
I respect that, though. Like, just saying, like, fucking going all in. Like, that was kind of what we did with Amanda's gym when we started it.
Yeah.
Like, she just quit. Like, we were like, let's just do this.
Well, we talk all the time about the commitment, right? Yeah. Like, I'm going to do this or I'm going to die. Like, it's just straight up commitment, all in. Yeah. And that's what it takes to be a world champion.
Yeah, it's like, just burn the boats and just go for it.
Yep.
That's very much like what I did. I remember when I moved out, I was like, okay, so if I get a job to make money, then I don't have any time to train. The problem is I have to make up an extra 10 years that these guys have been training since they were 5 years old. I got to make up 10 years from somewhere. So how do I do that? It's like, well, instead of making more money, I'll just need less money. So I just moved into my car. I had a Jeep Wrangler at the time. I moved into that. And then I was just like literally training every day, all day. And that was kind of the life for a long time.
You've told me a little bit about that life, but can you go into a little more depth about, you said like living out of your car, and in your Jeep Wrangler, but it was those days were kind of intense, right? Like you were taking the train to New York and then coming back and then working at another academy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there was another academy that I was working at back then, and it was probably, I don't know, 5-6 years doing that. So I had like 2 years in a Jeep Wrangler, and then I upgraded to a Grand Cherokee, and I was like, I can stretch out. Holy cow, this is amazing.
Wait, when you're saying upgraded, meaning like upgraded your home?
I upgraded my transportation, my home.
Yeah.
So I sold the Jeep Wrangler and I bought a Grand Cherokee, and I was like, let's go. Like I set up a little shelf in there and everything too. And it was great, man. It was great. And so then from there, I ended up going to like the van life and doing that for a little while too. But just like didn't have to pay rent and do it that way. And then I would just train all day in the gym that I was at there. After that, as soon as I was doing like day passes, commuting up to the city every once in a while when I could afford it to Marcelo Garcia Academy in New York. And when I got my brown belt, like a couple days after, I was like, all right, like I need to be around people who are like-minded, who are world champions, who, you know, there's another level and I need to get there. And so that's when I signed up at Marcelo's in New York. So I would be teaching at this other gym. I would commute to the city. So I'd drive like 20, 30 minutes to the train station, hop on the train, and then I would go all the way up to like New York Penn Station. And then from there you walk down to Marcelo's, like 26. And then, you know, you train a few sessions depending on the day. Some days you're training 4 sessions, some days it's only 2 sessions, and then you come back. I would teach and do whatever there, and then you know, you sleep, and then you try to do it all again. By Saturday you're literally dead, and then you just try to rest.
4 sessions, you said?
Yeah, so a lot of days I would go up there with the 7 a.m. crew, and you know, shout out to those guys. Man, I would get up at like 4:30 in the morning, and I'd be in the city by training. I would literally walk in the door at like 6:56, 6:57, something like that. Just enough time to like jog, change my gi, get ready, and start training. So first session 7 a.m. Then you're drilling. You know, you get some breakfast, whatever. You go drill like 11:30, 12:30 sessions. Then you go, there's a 5 o'clock session, and then there was an 8 o'clock session. So some days you would just hit all of those. You kill yourself one day so you can recover and kind of unpack the details that you learned and the data you collected the next day.
That's a crazy amount of training. Are you getting hard rounds in like every session, or
they literally would try to kill you? You're in a room with world champions and just monsters who, you know, we would call it the trenches. You know, you're in the trenches. You're people running each other into walls, bumping in. They're all in close range. You know, Pulha the rounds it wasn't a soft environment by any stretch.
That explains why you guys can compete at the level at which you do now. You know what I mean?
Were you, so all that time you're living in your Cherokee. So so I'm curious, man, like what were the evenings like? Now, obviously you're exhausted from training, right? So you could probably sleep anywhere, dude. You probably sleep on like a bed of nails if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But what were the evenings like? Because you mentioned like unpacking, like the learnings. And when we kicked off the show, you said like learning how to learn, which I loved, right? So what were the evenings like in the Grand Cherokee?
Yeah, man, it would be, you come back, you shower. There's a shower at the school, so I would shower, and then you just unpack to go to sleep. Basically, would be, you know, you had a mat and a sleeping bag, a little like kind of bed area. You know, take the dirty clothes, you put them in the bucket, make sure they don't stink up anything. And I would do laundry on the weekends or every few days at a laundromat. And you know, you read, take some notes, watch some film for a few hours, and then you pass out. On the days where you're getting back really late, you got to get up and do it again early. You just try to pass out as quick as you can. And then I would have these like cardboard pieces that I would cover with black duct tape. I cut them just to the shape of the windows, so I would black everything out. And when it was really cold out, it was actually pretty nice to sleep in there because you just get all like warm and cozy. It's all right, dude. When it's cold and it's rainy, that's like double whammy. It's like super cozy. You got the sound of the rain, and you know no one's gonna bother you because of the rain. Yeah, dude. I was down. I liked it.
So
the white noise.
When it's hot though, it's terrible. It's miserable when it's
Nobody
hot.
wants to be in a hot car.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my dad used to take me and my buddy camping. And, you know, we drive like, you know, upstate Pennsylvania, and he had a pickup truck and a cap on the back. Yeah. And he used to just put me and my buddy in the in the back and just put like a kerosene heater in the back. With like blankets. Like we're talking like winter. You know, and you being like living in the back of that Grand Cherokee like that, it brought me back to that time. That's why I wanted to.
It was like a camping trip every night, man. Urban camping. You know?
I was going to ask you about the windows too, so you touched on that.
You got to be invisible. I feel like so many nights where, you know, you don't know what you're doing. So when I was first living out of my car, I was like, you know, figuring out where can I park, and where so many nights it's just like knock, 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 some cop messing with you. And at the time, I used my mom's address in Minnesota at the time, and because she had moved out there, and so I would have Minnesota plates, an out of state license.
God.
And so when the cops like knock, 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 he's like, I'm like, oh, I'm on a road trip. I have some excuse, whatever,
Yeah, you gotta explain, like, because they're not gonna really believe the real stories.
Dude,
so.
I had the same cop knocked on my window at different places 3 separate times. And on the second time, he was like, he was kind of cool. The second time, he was like, don't let me see you again. And on the third time, dude, he was like ready to put me in handcuffs. And like, it was like 3, 4 in the morning. I woke up. I was like, oh my God, I got to be at training like soon. Like, this is horrible. Yeah. And at that moment, this guy just goes zooming by like for no reason. And he's like, it's your lucky day. Don't let me see you again. Jumps in his car and dips. And he starts chasing that guy. And I was like, let's go. And like, I was just more careful where I parked and never saw him again, thankfully. So.
Yeah. That's wild, man. When you were, so you're living out of your Grand Cherokee, your Wrangler, then your Grand Cherokee. Was there ever a doubt in your mind that it wasn't going to work?
No, I was too stupid for that. Yeah. I was way too dumb to know the size of the bite that I had bitten off.
Yeah.
And I think like at the level that I'm at now, I've closed the gap on these guys who are world-class level. Like we're talking top 10 guys on the planet. Yep. Aside from Mikey, he's in another league of his own. But the top guys in the world, that's who I'm like, man, I need to win worlds. These are the guys who I have to compete against. I need to be at that level. Mm-hmm. We've closed that gap enough that it's very, very attainable. It can happen for sure. But before I was at that level, when I thought the gap was a lot closer than it is or was, like, dude, it was so far. I had no idea how far it really was. Yep. And luckily I was dumb enough to think it was close to have hope to keep going.
We call that delusional delusional self-belief.
We were just talking about this
100%.
on a previous episode, like delusional self-belief and believing in yourself when no one else does. Mm-hmm. Did anyone take you seriously when you walked into Marcelo's as a?
Did they know you were living in your car?
As I was thinking, as a one-stripe white belt coming in here, like, oh, I want to be a world champion.
Yeah. No, I didn't. So I wasn't at Marcelo's until brown belt.
Oh, okay.
So when I got there at brown belt, I was a very active competitor, and I kind of jumped in with all the other brown belts. Like they had a dream team back in the day with like all the black belts now. When they were brown belts before they got promoted, and they kind of like called themselves the dream team, the Marcelo's dream team. And so we had a brown belt squad, and everybody called us the dream team 2.0. And so it was like, there was quite a few of us, it was Nick Salas, it was myself, it was Max Rudiman, there was Marcus Rudy, there was a bunch of other, brown belts. And so we had a solid brown belt squad who would just go to comps and just clean house. And, so that happened at brown belt. So I was kind of absorbed into that decently quickly, but it was a very kind of standoffish environment for the most part. It was very cliquey and, things like that. It wasn't the healthiest environment to learn. It was very, very good to get super tough training. It would make you tough, but it's not going to make you smarter. And that kind of really is something that, my partner, Nick Salas, he and I really took to, like, there's a different way, and when we met Mikey, it was like, holy cow, like not only is there a different way, but we have proof now, and this guy's just been doing it this different way that we believed in, but for 20 years, and he's so much better, he's so much further along with it than anyone. Like Mikey's on another level of his own, and we can talk about that later.
That is one thing I want to get into, like the whole movement art curriculum and what makes the way your way of teaching or the way you understand jiu-jitsu different, but is Marcelo's where you met Nick for the first time? Yeah,
so it was just before I joined. He was actually a large part of the reason that I joined Marcelo's at the time. So I was like, back up a little bit, I was like up until brown belt, I was at this other gym, like just kind of training and figuring it out on my own. But the only thing that I knew was like I had to be my own coach. And so I was working on that a lot. Nick Salas was doing his thing as well. Similar circumstances, reaching the same conclusions, totally separate. So he joined Marcelo's, and we were like talking a little bit, and he was like, look, bro, if you're serious, like, why are you not surrounding yourself with people who are trying to do the same things as the goals that you want? And I was like, it's a good question. All right, I'm there. Let's do it. And he kind of brought me in and really helped me, cut ties with the other gym, or not even cut ties, but just be like, I need this, you know, I need to get to this level. And that was the start of it. And he and I really kind of became best friends on that sort of like, we both want the same things, had the same vision, and thought about jiu-jitsu the same way. And so it was really nice to have someone else there who kind of, you could bounce ideas off of, you could drill with, and explore jiu-jitsu and really learn jiu-jitsu, not just train hard. So, and I think to be really good at jiu-jitsu, you need both. You have to have a really intellectual approach to shortcut the learning curve as much as you can, at the same time as just being tough, like hardcore, and kind of, you got to have a dog in you at the same time, you know?
Smarts and savagery, both.
Yeah.
Yeah, both. Yep. Makes sense. So you guys met when you were both brown belts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
had he been there at that gym in New York? Is that where he came up through the ranks?
Yeah,
or?
he had just joined there, but
Oh, okay.
similar trajectory to me, where, you know, we kind of came up in jiu-jitsu through the belts in other locations,
you.
and
I
didn't
got you.
really have any coaching, you know, didn't really have any coaches to be like, do this, do that, learn this, learn that. I mean, for me, it was like past white belt with a few stripes. It was like, you know, you're learning, all right, here's the Kimura. Okay, here's a basic half guard, whatever. But again, the mechanics are, you know, looking back, the mechanics are even wrong on those things. It's like, so learning a few moves is like, okay, cool. But then beyond that, like, what am I doing here, you know? So me just chasing that like aha feeling, you know, just trying to get that dopamine of learning something new and then applying it was huge. And he was doing the same thing. So just both of us really learning as much as we could on our own, being our own coaches, learning how to be our own coaches, and then going to the competitions and testing things. And then when we kind of met each other, it helped a lot.
Yeah, we talk about that, like the performance gap between knowing and doing, like between learning and doing, and how important it is when you learn something to immediately apply it.
100%.
Right? Because especially nowadays, just even outside of jiu-jitsu, entrepreneurship, whatever, there's a ton of learning, not a lot of doing, you know?
And going into that, Danny did allude to that you are a black belt under Mikey Musumeci. At what point did you and Nick join forces and say, okay, let's start a business and create this environment we want to create?
Yeah.
And start it and create it in Richborough, PA, of like all, like,
So,
being that
yeah.
we're in New York. But for those of you that are listening, and for you, Joe, like when you go to Movement, there's a different level of energy there. Like the vibrations, speaking on a philosophical level like that, like it feels like there's just so much positive energy and creativity and connection going on there, that when you're there, you just want to, like, that's where you want to learn.
Yeah.
So, like, at what point did you guys paint the picture of like, this is what we want to create, and then that you set out to create that? Or how did it even come about that you guys were like, let's go into business together? Because you're already chasing an a very challenging goal in trying to become world champions, but then like there's also this extremely other challenging goal that you're chasing, and that's building a business that most people can't do either.
Dude, I mean, like, so Nick and I like joined forces like immediately, like when we went to Marcelo's and we met. And I think that was the start of everything, is just having somebody that was like on the same page, and we were like, we're going to do the same things. And then, so I think that was kind of always the goal. Flash forward really far, things started taking a turn a little bit. You know, we met Mikey, we're training with Mikey and friends with Mikey. And then, you know, pandemic starts to happen, things start to shut down.
Were you guys looking to start a business at that time?
No,
or,
no, definitely not. We just wanted to train every day and get better and win worlds. That's singularly focused. That is all we cared about. That's all we wanted. And that's really something that we were chasing. And so for us to open Movement Art was like, we've been to so many different gyms. We've trained with the top guys in the world. We've been around the block. There's things that we love at a lot of different academies, and there's things that we really hated. Being on the wrong end of cliques, being on the wrong end of favoritism in politics, drama, being on the wrong end of just training a certain way where you're just trying to kill each other. You're not trying to learn. seeing gyms where all they do is just kind of static drill and try to learn, but they never train hard at all. And it's just kind of like, we tried to take the best pieces of everything, bring them together into what we believe is the best training environment that's conducive to learning and competing at the top level, where you can both get hard training in and you can level up your knowledge and learn as quickly as possible, trying to shortcut that process, being around like-minded people at the same time. So kind of bring those three things together to say, like, we want to build this location with this intent, with this vibe, so that we have a place where we can win worlds. And if we're trying to go and win worlds, then the hobbyist who wants to go win NAGA is in good hands. The hobbyist who doesn't care about competing is in good hands, because all they care about is having fun, learning, and leveling up. Well, they're going to do that. They're leveling up way faster and way more than they will anywhere else. So I think for us, it was really important. We were in Sweden at the time. Pandemic was happening. We had actually just watched that movie Contagion. And we were like joking around, like, oh, like, you know, you don't know what was going to happen here. And we were like, oh, like, wouldn't that be funny if everything shut down? Ha, 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 knock on wood. Next thing you know, we're in the London airport. We just competed in the Grand Slam in London. We won that. And so we had a nice little chunk of change, and the world just kind of shut down. And so we went from Sweden to London. We barely made it back into the country. Like a day or 2 days after, they kind of shut the borders for a little bit. It was kind of crazy. We didn't have a place to train. Marcelo's closed down. New York City closed down basically as a whole. And we were like, okay, so now what? Nick's parents, they're moving from one house to another, and the new house that they're moving into is getting construction done on it. There's no one living there at the time. So we were like, you know, asked Nick's pops, we were like, hey, like, can we set up some mats here? And by the way, I don't have a place to live. Can I just sleep in that closet? So we kind of did that for like a year, 8 months to a year, something like that. I don't really remember. And we called it the Bolo Bros house. It was just like ghetto and just crazy training. So basically the hyperbaric like time chamber where you just go into, and it's like
from like Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, dude, that was Nick and I, bro. Every day, hours of tape, hours of drilling. We still have videos from it. It's crazy. Hours of tape, hours of drilling, hours of sparring, trying to kill each other with no one watching, no one around. Just Nick and I just murdering each other. Like, it was crazy, bro.
I
love that.
And then we would take our trip to Quick Trip, right? Or is it Quick Check? Whatever it is, like right up the street. It's like a Wawa. It's Jersey Wawa, you know? And go up to there and get some snacks, whatever, come back, and then just like let it digest and just do it again all evening. You
And
know?
everyone-
Every day was like that for like a
This
year.
is during the pandemic when everything shut down.
Everything, dude. We were getting messages of people hating us for training, and I was like, "We're more isolated than
my
anybody
God.
right now." I was like, "We're only training with each other." Like,
It's
what
like,
are you talking about?
It's exactly. It's just us two locked up in
Literally,
this house.
I was like, if anything works, whatever. But
So realistically, you guys probably progressed. I mean, that probably gave you guys an edge because everyone else was not training at the
they
time.
weren't
I
trained. They're
remember
getting
that.
like, you know, fat and lazy and enjoying their time off, and we're just like, the
Getting
world is
after
going to
it.
reopen. World is going to come back. We're going to be ready.
Yeah, you're gonna be
And so, you know,
How was that first competition back after COVID?
was good, man.
Did you guys crush?
it was good. That was Brown Belt Pan Ams was the first one coming back. We had left Marcelo's. We're teamless. And, you know, we're friends with Mikey. We talking to him, and he was like, he's like, can I give you guys black belts then? Like, kind of helping us out. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, bro, that's the dream. That that was our ideal situation, you know? And so to have that be an option, we were like, bro, like, let's do it. And he's
awesome.
like, okay, go bowl everybody at Pans. We were like, okay. And so we just went absolutely just bullet everybody at Pans and just like took first place and closed the division out with each other, and the
He's like,
vibes on that
Bolo
day.
everyone at Pants.
Yeah,
Also.
yeah.
Like you had to actually.
We didn't have to do anything, I feel like.
Okay. It was a
but
figure of speech.
I feel like Mikey doesn't understand. I think when Mikey's like, oh crap, we're like, what color, how much, and where? Like he's that good. So when he's like giving a suggestion or something, like we trust it. And so what we'll do is we'll do it, and then we'll figure out why later, or we'll ask why later. And it's always right, you know? But at this time, he just made like a sarcastic comment, I think, like, oh, just go bowl everybody. And we're like, He's serious.
And you guys literally did?
Yeah, we literally did. Yeah,
You're like mission received.
We literally did. There's a video of me in the finals match sprinting back to the middle of the mat after I just bowled the guy and he defended and we rolled out of bounds. And I literally sprint back to the mat and the guy gets up. He's like, this guy is a psycho. Like, what's going on? And Nick's just like, let's go. Like, dude, I bowl him again. He keeps running out of bounds. And so the last bolo I finish, I'm on his back. I have a hook in. I have like the choke. I'm like ready to go. And he just like walks out of bounds, basically gets DQ'd. And that's how we win the final. And I don't even realize it's happening. I'm just like, I'm ready to fight again.
Yeah, exactly.
And then all of a sudden they raise my hand and I'm like, oh, that was anticlimactic. Like, okay. And then, yeah, so then that was the vibes on that day were very, very good.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's definitely a moment that, you know, Nick and I will share that we look back onto those vibes of just like, it's do or die time.
Yeah.
And every time we've been in that situation, it's like do or die. I feel like the level changes, you know?
Yeah, you rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions on that one?
I mean, I have a bunch,
Dude,
but I don't want to throw off
told
your
you.
cadence, dude.
Yeah,
I don't want to
as
throw
far
your
as, like,
cadence
I'm
off.
business goes.
I'm jealous. This is the first time Joey's heard your story because he's probably sitting here like
Yeah, this is great. This is
I
great.
told him it was a good one.
It gets deep. Like, we're kind of nuts. We don't really have a life outside of the goals that we wanted. So before this, I was trying to just do soccer and I was like, I'm going to do that. And then I was like, all right, I don't really love this and switch. But man, I remember in Sweden, we were just isolated again in another country, basically. Just Nick and I were training there every day, learning. And we go to this little cafe that's open obnoxiously late for some reason. We don't know why. And it was called Tintin. And so we're always like, that was the inception of movement art, was in Tintin, this little cafe in Sweden. And we wrote down on some napkins, okay, the city's closing down. What are we going to do? It's like, well, we pay X amount of dollars to train, X amount to compete. Here's what we got to do, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so if we invest this much money into training and the whole thing goes to garbage, is it really a loss, or are we just paying X amount of dollars to train for X amount of time? Because we were like, all right, say we invest all this time. It's not going to burn to the ground before 6 months or a year. We have enough money to keep that afloat for that long. So basically then we're just, it's kind of close, actually. It's a little bit more. All right, so let's say if it all goes south, then it's just like training fees, except for our environment instead of someone else's. And that's kind of how we thought about it.
The rent on your first bill, it must not have been that bad.
The rent wasn't that bad. And I remember like we were trying to find a location when we first got back. So we had like in Tintin, we had all the numbers and we were like, this makes sense. Let's do it. Yeah. And we got back, we started getting to work. And after about a year of Bowler Bros house, like refining ideas, brainstorming the names, taking polls on different names. And like, dude, we did everything down to the color scheme, down to what brand mats are better than others that would work better for us, and down to everything that, you know, the logo, we worked for months just on the logo, like every little piece, you know.
Were there any other names that were close to?
A lot. Yeah. There was a lot. I'm going to keep those locked.
One or two.
There was a few of them, but I'm going to keep those locked away. We have some students who we had a conversation about, and they might want to use some of them. Or, I don't know. We'll see. Probably not. They're kind of garbage, but yeah, dude, we had all the data on a napkin and we were like, all right, let's do it. We're searching around for a location. And I kind of, little birdie on a wire told me this other school was closing down because of COVID. And I was like, oh, we're dumb enough. Let's do it. So I kind of cold called them and then like sort of convinced them to sell me their business / them wanting to get out of their lease without, you know, getting their hands dirty. And so it was kind of a win-win scenario. So we got into a lease where the place was already outfitted. We painted it, we changed it, and we made it ours. 3-year lease, and from month 1 we were in the green, and we never went into debt, never took out a loan, and we just did it the classic old school way. And
is that your current location that you're in now?
So we moved from those first 3 years. We just upgraded about in November, so however many months that is.
You inherited their member base as well, or purchased their member base? Or?
There was some sketchy. Yeah, for sure. That didn't happen.
Okay, I got you.
Luckily, we did the legwork for a year ahead of time to make sure that we had the students to fill the numbers. And if we didn't do that, we would have been sunk. And I think everybody thought we were going to be sunk, especially during COVID. luckily, we did the legwork and we made it happen. And we're blessed to have some amazing supportive people that want to learn jiu-jitsu at a high level. And they actually care about the level of details that they're learning. So then after that location, we just switched to a 5,000 square foot facility. It's in Warminster, Pennsylvania. Stop by anytime. Everybody's welcome. The door is open. The vibes are good. The level of training and detail is very, very high. Nothing like anything else that I've ever been to.
Let me paint the picture for a
Where
6:30.
what do you buy in Warminster? Where are you at in Warminster?
There's off of Jacksonville Road.
You know where the Tanner
we're
Girls
in.
is?
Yeah, I know where
It's
Tanner's is.
right down the
Yeah, a
street.
few minutes away from that.
Oh,
so
really?
it's pretty close.
Oh,
yeah,
all right,
yeah.
nice.
So it's
So let me just paint the picture for a 6:30 class over at Movement Art. You walk in
AM, PM.
PM. I'm
PM.
sleeping at 6:30.
So- You walk in through the garage door that's open in the front. You got beautiful white walls, everything. Like everything's high end, like state of the art, right? It'll say like it just gives you that feel.
Immaculate.
Yep.
Place of
garage
learning.
door also open in the back, sun setting, and you got people working out, people watching, people in the sauna, and the way it's just like
Okay.
and
Okay,
lo-fi playing.
Lo-fi. Yeah, you gotta have the vibes, man.
Yeah,
You gotta
they
have the
got
vibes. It's
lo-fi
chill.
playing during drills too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now.
Can't drill to just people be. Like, nobody wants to hear that, man. Nobody wants to hear that. Yeah, man. The vibes are for sure, they're amazing, and I think that really is just Nick and I trying to envision two things: like, what's the best environment that we would love to be around for our home every day to be training in. So we just built that, and then for people to learn and feel welcome and feel comfortable in a real state-of-the-art facility that's a world-class level gym. It's not just about the instruction, it's also about the facility. So, we're still working on it. There's always improvements to be made.
Yeah.
That was the thing you could tell that they put thought, effort, and intention into. It's like it's not your hole in the wall gym. It's like, where would I like to train and what would make me feel the best.
Sure.
You touched on it like beforehand, but do you want to talk a little bit about what makes movement art different as far as like your understanding of jiu-jitsu and the way you guys teach? Or
Yeah, I mean, so movement art is the idea that as a black belt instructor for both Nick, myself, the other coaches at Movement Art, it's our job to be educators for both ourselves and then, our students after that. Our job is to take the information and boil it down, make anything that's complex, understand it deeply so we can explain it simply and break it down for people on a Joe Schmo level so anybody can learn it. Learning about structure and body positioning first and the details and the concepts that really are going to help you to organize your jiu-jitsu in the long term to be your own coach. Our job as instructors is to help you not need us as quick as possible. I don't want to be, imagine a high school, teacher who is like trying to keep you down and in a way that you always are going to be at the high school level. Yeah. As a good high school teacher, you're trying to teach them to the college level. College professor trying to teach you how to be, the next thing and uncover new ground in science. And that's really the idea of Movement Art Jiu-Jitsu, is to try to update the technology of everyone there and then continue to push the envelope of how jiu-jitsu is taught, how jiu-jitsu is thought about, and the techniques and the organization that is used. Things for us, it's black and white. They're going to make more sense or it makes less sense in every single position. And we need to understand that, not just do random moves. So for us, that's a huge, huge difference.
That's the first time I've ever heard that in the jiu-jitsu space. Like, I hear that from trainers,
Same
fitness
thing
trainers,
though, yeah.
But I've never heard that in the jiu-jitsu space.
I
It's
think that's
amazing.
something that you'll hear a lot from people who are like world class though. I've been blessed to be around a lot of world class humans doing, business, soccer, we'll say, other athletes in other sports, as well as, in jiu-jitsu, thankfully. And, something that I like to do as well is I like to read a lot and I'm always trying to learn. And the people who are at the pinnacle of whatever their field is, they're like, I don't know anything about anything else really, because my opinion's always subject to change, but I know this much about this and I'm always learning, but here's what I know right now. And that's our job in jiu-jitsu and everything else. So why should we not apply the same methodologies to jiu-jitsu? Why do we get a black belt and then just stop learning? That's insane to me. And that's one of my pet peeves that like drives me crazy is black belts who don't update their technology. I'm like, man, like the first, computers came out and then you had, different operating systems, and somebody who got a black belt 10 years ago, they're operating on Windows 97. And it's like, bro, that's great and all, but
it's almost like they think they know everything.
We've updated.
They know just because they're in the black belt.
But you're a black belt. You own a school. It's your job to update your technology and give that technology and that software to your students. And
Otherwise, you're
shortcut
doing
that
a
process for
disservice
them.
to them.
100%. That's how we believe, for sure.
What percentage, when you look at your member base, or your students rather, what percentage are hobbyists versus competitors?
I'd say majority hobbyists, for sure. Majority hobbyists, people who, hobbyists is the same as any other gym. They have a job, a wife, kids, limited time to train throughout the week. And the reason that they'll gravitate towards movement art is they'll say, hey, man, I only can train 3 days a week. That's 3.5, 4 hours maybe a week total. That's not a lot of time. What should I be focusing on to get as good as I can in jiu-jitsu as quick as possible? And that's our entire job at Movement Art, is to shortcut that process and give you those things. And the proof is in the pudding, and you can tell when these hobbyists, once in a while, they go to compete, you see the difference. You know, you can literally see it.
I mean, you go there and enroll with these guys, like you feel the difference. Like everyone I've talked to is like, I want to trade in my belt. When they that's literally what it feels like. It just feels like they're on a different.
So does the hobbyist, one of your hobbyist students, do they come in with the same mentality that one of your,
the
frequent competitors do?
I really feel they should. The only difference between a hobbyist and a frequent competitor and me being a world-class competitor trying to win black belt worlds is the level of commitment to the goal. So we're all committed to learning as quick as we can. But for me, it's far more important. So I'm cramming for that test way more than the hobbyist.
For sure.
And, everybody in between is doing the same. But again, they're all treated the same. And the cool part is that they might be on different levels on the same path, but the structure and organization is the same. And I think one of the really cool things is just how there isn't like cliques in movement art. It's the weirdest environment where Nick and I both hate that feeling of like being excluded on the outside. And, we didn't want to have that in our gym. So we've worked very hard to make sure that everyone feels included, they feel welcomed. And for right now, I think we have a really good environment where we don't have those type of cliques and people are welcomed. But at the same time, if your vibe is off and you're kind of like a jerk or whatever else, they just don't last long at Movement Art. And it's not that they're not welcome, but they don't feel comfortable in a positive environment where they want to like tear people down. And we just don't have those type of people there. So
it's interesting you bring that up though, because when I took Parker there for a kids class at one time, Nick gave a little, I don't want to say speech, but like a talk to the kids at the end of class. And he said, like, I guess a kid may have been getting left out in live training, picking partners. And he said, these are all our teammates. We want to make sure everyone's like, we're not skipping out on roles, but certain people because of who they are, what we think they
can or can't do.
Or like just like everyone here is your teammate, and it's important that we include everybody. I thought that that stuck with me. You know? The fact that I recalled that just now.
It's optimized for learning.
100%. Yeah, and I think like if you're in a positive state of mind, you're going to retain that information far, far better than if you're like low key traumatized from doing something wrong and getting like yelled at or something. And I think it's just super important for us to both create the environment of positivity, but then also to put the onus on the kid or whoever else and be like, hey man, like it's your fault. Everything in life is your fault and you want it to be your fault. And that's our job to help them understand that they want things to be their fault, because then they have the power to change it. And that's super important for them. So we'll yell at the kids like, don't go waiting around for someone to come and pick you. Go and pick someone else. And if that makes you feel some type of way, get over those feelings. And that's something you need to get over those feelings and that insecurity to go and pick partners and be assertive and build confidence, so that's huge. So both ends of those spectrum are something that we actively work on.
One thing I'm always telling Parker, that everything is your fault.
Yeah.
And that it's harsh to say to a kid.
In the best way possible.
And he'll get it. He'll fully understand it one day. But
The thing is, like, for me, and I had this conversation with my daughters. It was recent. It might have been this weekend, actually. I told them, I'm like, it's similar. Like, everything's your fault, but that's actually liberating because that means you're in control.
100%.
If things weren't your fault, you're completely out of control, and you have
Yeah.
you have no levers to pull in that situation to turn whatever the loss was into learning. If you're in control, right? If it's your fault, you're in control, and that's the best part about it.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I love and hate competing so much. Sometimes things don't go your way, and sometimes it doesn't look like it's your fault directly, and you have to be able to look at things and make them your fault.
Yeah.
So I've been screwed over by referees in multiple different situations, and I got to look at these and not make excuses and say, okay, yeah, I got screwed over, but this situation happened before that, and I messed up this grip and this technique, and I could have done this, I could have done that, and you got to figure out how you can make things your fault. So even taking that a step further, I remember like one of the biggest stings in my career is like losing in the black belt world semifinal. And like, I've had this dream forever of like competing on the Sunday at Worlds on the black belt league on the mats.
Visualize it.
It's a different feel, and you got everybody watching, you got the cameras and everything. And I'm just like, I've dreamed of this. I've been there so many times. And then when I was there, I was like, we're doing this. Like, we are going to win Worlds. And, I was lucky to have Nick with me there. And he was like, this is our time. Like, let's do this, And I ruined it, and I messed it up. And I ended up losing by advantage or whatever. And I can directly point to a number of details that I didn't understand at the time because my level wasn't good enough yet. And if I had done those details, who knows, maybe I would have won, maybe I would have lost, but the story would be different for sure. And then that prompts another thought of, let's say those details, maybe the situation changes. How many more details could you learn until you could really change it? And this is something that is so inspiring about like Mikey Musumeci, who his technical level is so far gone past everyone else that he can be competing on like his worst day, feeling like garbage. He's a terrible competitor, he's an amazing human, terrible competitor. He, with the nerves or whatever else. And so when we see Mikey competing, he's competing at like 5% or like whatever of his capability. It's insane. And so to see the technique shine through, the true level of his technique is insane. So if you can get that true level of your technique to a world-class level that is beyond a world-class level, really, it'll make up for however you're feeling on the day. Referees trying to screw you over, the opponent being on steroids. There's so many factors, and you have to have let's say a standard deviation of technique higher than each of those extra factors. So you don't need to just be more technical than your opponent. You need to be 5-6 times more technical than your opponent to ensure that you're going to win. And that's the road that we're on at Movement Art, is trying to get to that level where it just doesn't make a difference.
I love it.
Well, that segues into my next question perfectly. So you said you ruined it, but we're there on this journey to black belt, medalist, business owner. Were there any extremely low points in the journey and points where you felt like, because I asked this question to all of our guests because I like to hear how they overcame, but any points where you felt like it might not work out, and what did you do to overcome those?
Yeah, I've definitely had some dark times, some low points. At different times, I would say the way I overcame them is different because of where I was at, the knowledge I had. I had a time when I first met Mikey where I was training at Marcelo's. I was getting a little bit like just super turned off from jiu-jitsu because I'm always being told that drilling is wrong and studying is wrong, and none of it's going to help you anyway, and there's too much variation to actually learn everything. And I'm like, okay, and I'm sitting here thinking like, well, what if somebody told me that about math? Like, why are we studying math in school then? This doesn't make any sense. So for us, it's an intellectual thing. For them, it's just movement, and they didn't want to study it. And so, it really turned me off from jiu-jitsu. I got really, really low. I was like ready to quit. And Mikey was like, he talked to me for like 2 hours the first time I met him after just absolutely annihilating me. And man, like you just really kind of brought me back from the brink, I feel like, to reignite the love I had for jiu-jitsu, because I was like, I haven't had that curious feeling of aha and that dopamine from learning something new and being able to apply it. I kind of got away from that for a little bit of time. And I think it really impacted me negatively in jiu-jitsu to the point where I was like ready to not do it. And now, you know, my love of it is just as high as ever. That same feel when you're in day one and you're like learn a Kimura and you're like, whoa, that's so cool. And you're like, I'll never hit that live though. And then you hit it live and you're like, oh, this is so cool. Yeah. Like for me, I get that same feeling, but it's zoomed in so much more. So I'm like, man, I can't break this grip. But when I turn the pinky like this and I make him activate his pinky instead of his thumb, now I can break the grip when I get it on the inside of my knee versus the outside. It's like, whoa, that's so cool. So now we're thinking about these details instead of those. Okay. Same dopamine response. Feels great. You're learning, you're leveling up, you're having fun. So Mikey really helped me overcome like that first bout of like kind of depressive, I want to quit. I'm done with this. I don't know what I want to do with my life. And he really helped me with that. I think I also stayed with it for a long time too. You know, I didn't really have another choice because I kind of burned the lifeboats. So when I had some, you know, you're swimming in the ocean or whatever, you don't have another choice. It's just kind of, you swim or you die. And I feel like that's kind of where I was. And then I've had other times too where, you know, maybe the way through was learning more about, you know, neuroscience and my neurochemistry and how things affect our body, our brains, our emotions, and our feelings differently. How the body can impact, you know, your feelings and how your feelings can impact your physiology as well. And just learning how to kind of biohack that a little bit to feel a little bit better and grow. And I think that's really, really important as an athlete, but also as just a regular person who wants to feel better and optimize performance, you know?
Oh, for sure.
So it's funny. I react like that to biohacking because we just did an episode on biohacking.
Really? Yeah. I'm going to listen to that.
I mean, I talked about how I've grown to not like the word anymore. I used to be biohack, but now I just think it's like things you do to increase.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like true biohacking. It's more like, okay, like I understand that I feel this type of way because I have, you know, been getting way too much dopamine. So now I'm in this valley and it's hard to regain my baseline. So then when I do something that's like, holy cow, this is amazing. Like it's not spiking my dopamine the same. Like just learning how, you know, we function as humans has been massive. So I would say there's been dark times where knowledge has brought me out of it. It's like Andrew Huberman has this saying that he says all the time, which is like knowledge of knowledge is power. And so there's times where, you know, let's say for weight cuts, for example, where I'm like, I'm so hungry, like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, okay, why is my hunger at such a high level? It's like, well, you learn about satiety and, you know, your hunger hormones of, you know, leptin and ghrelin and whatever. And you're like, okay, I got to learn how to regulate these. And then all of a sudden you change your diet, you get your sunlight, you get your sleep right, and other things, you start feeling a lot better. And then of course it's no coincidence when you mess those things up, you feel like garbage, you overeat to compensate. So yeah, there's that for sure. Post competitions, another dark kind of thing is like I have like a binge eating disorder kind of, so man, I'll cut down. I'll cut down, and then after the competition, man, I eat, bro.
Like, I have like an all or nothing approach.
Dude, I don't party, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do anything. I'm pretty boring. I eat though, bro. Like that's my vice. And I've really been working a lot to try and not medicate with food so much, and I think that's not a healthy thing to do. I think
I did my gallbladder because I wrestled a little bit in high school, not very good. To preface, like very average wrestler, maybe below average. But I had to get my gallbladder removed because I developed through weight cutting. I developed that like a bad relationship with food. And I think that to this day even is why I have that all or nothing approach, because it's like I would weight cut and then binge. And that's what had me develop gallstones.
I think I cut weight incorrectly and way too harshly on my body way too many times. And I'm learning more about that balance now for sure. And so as a professional athlete now, treating myself, my body, my environment, my learning, my training, everything as a professional, you know, I feel like I've been trying to figure that out for the last 10 years. And I feel like now you know, I want to say I was close back then, but then every time you get closer, you always know that you weren't.
Yeah.
But I want to say right now that I'm definitely further along than I've ever been. And I feel like we're very ready for Worlds. We're very ready for, you know, what's next.
Well, so do we more?
No, continue. I don't want
I have two more questions just to bring this in for a landing. But so we'll start with, you said that, but what's next for you, Nick, even, or at Movement Art?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for Movement Art, the goal is to basically just continue to grow and thrive and share our love of jiu-jitsu, try to change the way people think about jiu-jitsu, and to continue to have an environment for people where they can come, be part of something bigger than themselves, feel welcome, enjoy the process of learning, fall in love with learning, and just have a healthy escape as well for some of the struggles in life that are happening. And then also to give the competitors, whether they're hobbyists or world-class competitors, a place where they can really come and level up, different than anything that they've ever experienced before. So just continue to build a world-class facility. We already have it, but to make it better, that's never going to stop. We never stop growing. We never stop learning. And I think the second that you do and you give up hope, you're good as dead. Yeah. And I think that's super, super key. I know even when I retire, it's like the goal is just going to shift. We're not going to stop. So,
Is there anything? What's next as far as like competing as well?
As far as competitions, we have Worlds coming up in a few weeks. So you know, camp's going strong for that. Feeling great. Jiu-jitsu. The jiu-jitsu level is feeling really, really good. The room feels really good. Everybody's pushing hard, training, technically learning a lot, drilling a lot. It's great. After Worlds, you know, there's many other things on the horizon, but for me, I'm very like single-minded on whatever I'm doing. So try to go 100% in on whatever that one thing is. So for me right now, it's Worlds, and everything else is just a shadow.
If you have no other question, to end it, there's a lot of members of the community that are aspiring competitors and new competitors. What advice do you have for someone that is new to competing or looking to make competing their life, right? Like what would you suggest to them?
Like
to
they're
make
trying
that
to
a
make
reality.
jiu-jitsu competition like their life.
Yeah, or just even the hobbyist competitor, right?
So, I mean, as far as the first one goes, like, don't do it. You know, no, I would have a serious conversation with them, or tell them to have a serious conversation with themselves. Why are you doing this? And start with why, of course. But man, if you're in it to make money, go make money. Go do something else. If you love it and you can't fall asleep without having it rack your brain, you might be in for it, you know? Be honest with yourself, I would say, about the level that you're aspiring to achieve. And you have to be unapologetic in finding the right environment to go and do that in, not just staying loyal to who's who, because loyalty is a two-way street. And so for me, I had people who were like, if you want to get to that level, you got to go and do that thing. I had a couple of people who were like that, thankfully. I had a lot of people who were saying a lot of other things, you know. But for me, I'd say that would be the first question is, are you going to try to make money, or are you doing it because you love it? Are you doing it because you want to be a world champion? And for me, I know I leave a lot of money on the table. That's not my goal. I'll make money when I'm retired. I'll make money later. And, you know, we do okay right now, and we're just going to keep working hard. And I know when we apply those same concepts to making money, things are going to change. And then I would just say, put yourself in the right environment. Proximity is the most powerful indicator of success or failure. If you're hanging around an environment, a location, certain people, that's what you're going to be. You know, when I have to drive past Wawa every single day with a big eating disorder when I'm cutting weight, it's a problem. So I just don't drive past the Wawa. I take a different route. And I think that's really, really important. If you're putting yourself around success all the time, let's say you never amount to that success, you're still going to be successful, you know? Amen. So just aim, sounds cliche, aim for the stars, you know? And if you land a little short, that's fine, you know?
Oh, we have a song. I just said that
We got into a whole debate on the solar system on previous.
Yeah. Actually, that too. Yeah, we don't want to, whatever. Aim for the stars, land for the moon. We'll get a measuring tape out.
But
which one's further?
It's just so,
That's what I mean.
it's absolutely,
it's the theory. That's the idea.
Exactly.
it's just absolutely crazy that you just brought up biohacking and shoot for the moon, land in the stars, because that was literally the theme of our last episode.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's huge, But yeah, long story short, if you want to be a competitor, you got to be your own coach first and foremost, because every one of these other coaches just sucks in the way that they're not updating their technology. And if they say they are and they're trying to convince you that they are, like, see if you can update your technology faster. If you can, then obviously they're not. And challenge them on everything. You should challenge them on everything. You should be a skeptic for everything in your jiu-jitsu. So be your own coach, number one. Number two is just put yourself in the correct environment to really reach that level. Not the environment where people are telling you that they're at that level. It's so common, especially in these gyms in this area, in the Philly area, and everywhere I've been actually around the country. They always say like, oh yeah, they don't teach that. They don't teach this. It's all, oh yeah, but those guys aren't legit. And it's like, you're not legit by tearing other people down. You're legit by building yourself up and building others up around you. And man, look at the credentials of whoever it is that you're trying to really learn from and put yourself in that environment. And then once you get to that level, you can decide to go higher or lower as needed.
Sure.
So
Cool.
Dude, I mean, that was
I have so many questions,
Yeah.
but we're gonna talk afterwards.
part two, maybe.
Yeah, part two.
All right, Danny, can you let the community know where to find you?
yeah, we're Movement Art Jiu-Jitsu at Movement Art Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram. Movementart.online is our website. The schedule is on there. We got like an open door policy. Everybody can come through. We don't do politics. We don't do drama. We just do like leveling up, learning, hard training, and having fun, having a good time. So come through and visit us. Even if you're not intent on joining the gym, come through and check us out. The door is always open. I'm at Danny Freestyle on Instagram. The L is a 1 though, because the L was taken. So I got scrubbed with the 1. The freestyle nickname came from like a soccer thing back in the day too. I remember there's a funny story real quick. Marcus was like, bro, you've been here for like 3 years now. I haven't heard you rap once. Like, what's going on?
That's funny.
I was like,
I was gonna ask you.
I
I was gonna ask you to freestyle here actually after I was hearing it.
That's fun.
But Danny Freestyle on Instagram, Movement Art Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram as well, and movementart.online is the website. And say those are the best spots to check us out. Give us a follow, and it doesn't take anything to follow and share. It doesn't cost anything to support in that way, and that's a huge help. Yep. Shout out to Fuel Hunt. You guys are amazing. I love what you guys are representing, what you guys are doing, not just as a brand, but as people, and bringing a community of like-minded people together. And man, especially in this day and age, in this world, we need more people who are trying to bring everybody together from all walks of life. And so, I commend you guys, and I thank you guys for doing what you're doing. And this is something that I'm very happy to align, with the brand, because it's something that I also stand for, and I'm trying to do with Movement Art. And I can see obviously you guys are doing this so well with Fuel Hunt.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. And I wanted to say thank you for the support. We're on, in many ways, we're on similar missions.
Yeah.
I always say to Drew, like, we build bridges. We don't dig trenches. You know what
I like that.
That's what we do, because we all have more in common than we have uncommon.
Yeah.
And that's lost now,
100%.
And I believe like anybody can tap into exactly who they could be and should be with the power of hard work. And that transcends all those lines.
Yeah.
So we're out here building bridges, man.
And the power of positivity that you put into the world comes back to you tenfold too.
Is that high? It's a high vibration.
Yeah.
Over and over, I know we're trying to tie this up, but over and over again, you guys were mentioning positivity, and the environment is positive, and the environment is positive. Like, what you're describing is a high frequency environment.
Yeah.
And in that type of environment, you absorb.
Yeah.
You absorb knowledge, you absorb other people's high frequency, right? You absorb the possibility and belief that what you're there for, you can achieve.
Yep.
That's what makes it positive,
100%.
So we commend you for what you're doing. We're on similar missions. Thank you for coming
We're
in
aligned.
today. I don't want to steal your outro, but
No,
I just wanted to say
I'm
thank you.
gearing up for the outro. I didn't see me
I think we could cut it off there. You just sign off.
I gotta let the Eagles know. Always choose hard work over handouts. Always choose effort over entitlement. And remember, no one owes you, no one owns you. You're one of the few.
Let's
go.
hunt. Let's
go.
hunt.
We
Let's
bump out.
hunt.
We
Let's
bump
hunt.
out.
Let's hunt.